Should Norwich replace Dean Smith as their manager then? My take, for what it's worth, Norwich City fans seem to have turned on boss Dean Smith last night after their home defeat against Blackburn. Segments of the Canaries fan base, well, let's just say, chanted their messages of displeasure. Now, Smith did have a little poke back in the post-match. Obviously, he who shouts loudest tends to be heard, and chants may not be the best way to judge the mood, but this cannot be a good barometer. So, are the Norwich fans right? Should Norwich City replace their manager, Dean Smith? Let's try and get to the heart of this. Give me your thoughts down there in the comments. The first question I would ask is, what are the expectations for Norwich? They are currently 5th in the Championship, 6 points off the automatic promotion spots, but also, for the interest of balance, 6 points off 17th place. They have won the title in their last 2 appearances in the Championship, scoring 94 and 97 points, with Daniel Farke and Emi Buendia leading the way in the dugout and on the pitch. Norwich are in year 1 of 2 years of parachute payments and have a pretty good Championship level squad. I think we'd all agree. Look, you know my take on parachute payments. If you've got them and your club isn't run by absolute lunatics, then mere competence in the dugout and on the pitch should really see a top 6 position and some kind of viable promotion challenge. If you factor in Norwich has a good support base and a recent history of either being up in the top tier or challenging to be there, then my take would be that Norwich should expect to be challenging for and getting promoted, if not this season, then starting to show the evidence that they're going to push on and do it next season. If those are the expectations, then is Dean Smith delivering on these expectations? Well, there's a binary and a nuanced way to answer this question. I'll do the binary first and get it out of the way. And this is what I call the Scott Parker problem. And fans of Bournemouth and Fulham both, frankly, whined to me about Parker during the seasons he was in charge at their clubs in the Championship. I said to both sets of fans, they would ask, is he doing a good job or a bad job? I would say, you're going to have to ask him at the end of the season. He's got parachute money, therefore, if he gets promoted, he's done a good job. And if he doesn't, he's done a bad job. Ask me at the end of the season. Parker obviously did get promoted twice, and from the financial side, that is all that matters. Norwich are currently 5th in the table. If the music stopped now, they would have a playoff semi-final against Watford, and they had a potential final against QPR or Blackburn. Obviously, that's the binary answer, and clearly analysis by vast oversimplification. We all know it's far more complicated than that, isn't it? The season, of course, does not stop now. So are Norwich going to maintain where they are? Are they going to trend up towards the automatics, or are they going to trend down outside the playoffs? Well, the current trend is down. Last 12 games, Norwich are 20th in terms of points accumulated, and only Reading and Wigan have scored fewer points in that time. Obviously, if that continues, a change would, you would think, be the right thing to do. Will it continue or not? Who knows? A little small caveat to say, in those 12 games, Norwich have played the entire rest of the top 6 as the table looks today. One of the big problems for Smith is that direct feedback from the supporters who don't much appear to like what they're watching. Yes, it was a high bar set by Daniel Farke and Emi Buendia, but the feedback I get from Norwich supporters, I've only seen them once in the flesh this season, is it's a little bit one-dimensional in terms of keeping the ball at all costs. Some of the underlying numbers are pretty decent, but of course they don't tell us everything, and there is no statistic really to measure performance in relation to expectations, either in general terms or financially. In terms of Dean Smith, the manager, I always kind of liked him really. I don't know a lot about the Walsall stuff. I do hopefully know a lot about the Brentford stuff, having covered them in the Championship for many years. Maybe I'm a little bit skewed by the fact that Brentford was always a good news story in terms of a bit of an underdog. And you know how the Championship can be. You know, he who has most money tends to win. And Brentford were a nice antidote to that. And Dean Smith certainly played his part in their journey. While he was there, Brentford played nice football. And look, he's not solely responsible for their excellent recruitment, but he will have played a part, particularly when you look at the likes of Romain Sawyers and Rico Henry coming in. Rico Henry's still there in the Premier League, where Brentford are right now, having worked their way up from Championship also ran to, a respectable challenger to really a dominant side in their last 2 seasons. Now they are up and fairly stable in the Premier League. It should be said, though, that while Dean Smith was there, it was very much not the expectation of promotion or else. But it very much was that way at Aston Villa. And if we're going down that binary route, he did get them up, but the naysayers will say he did have Jack Grealish, Tammy Abraham and Tyrone Mings, all future England internationals in the second tier of English football. Premier League survival then did follow, and then 11th place. He did obviously struggle after Jack Grealish left, ended up heading out of Villa and ultimately in to Norwich. Smith seems like a thoroughly nice chap and not the typical personality profile of a football manager in terms of those ruthless bastard alpha male types. Read into that what you will. It could be a good thing, it could be a bad thing. There is some argument, and I do have this on good authority, that he's more a developer of players and a coach rather than a brutal in-game winner. You know, you can give me your take on that. Unfortunately, Dean Smith is also a manager where some of his successes in the past are explained away. Either at Brentford, he was just part of a good structure, and Aston Villa are a gigantic club in Championship terms where, as I said, the bare minimum was promotion and he inherited some superb players. Would changing Dean Smith now improve things for Norwich? Now, before we get into this, we all need to be very honest and show some humility. We are in crystal ball mode here, so it's important not to be dogmatic. You cannot say with any certainty what will definitely happen in the future. Not every issue at Norwich is Dean Smith's fault. The ownership has certain limitations, which I think we know about, don't we? Some movement in that regard recently, though. And I would say that utterly brilliant 2018-19 season from Farke and Stuart Webber with the recruitment has almost powered these past few years. The answer, of course, requires even more guesswork, and whether replacing Smith improves things or not kind of depends on who comes in after he's gone. I'll leave that to you guys in the comments in terms of suggestions. Again, stating the pleading obvious, but Norwich could keep Smith and get promoted. They could keep Smith and not get promoted. They could change managers and get promoted. They could change managers and not get promoted. But look, I'm making it binary again, aren't I? Ultimately, yes, fans do want to win, but they also want to have fun at football. They want to feel emotionally connected with their clubs and fellow fans. And to a lot, it's an extension or a big part of their personality. So it is not for me to tell another fan how they should feel in that emotional regard. Should Norwich replace Dean Smith as their manager then? My take, for what it's worth, is if you're not going to do it now, then you almost need to say Smith should get the January window. And then if you're going to get the January window, it's then a chunk of games after for the impact of those new faces. Perhaps for Norwich, it might be a little bit like the Alex Neil situation, which preceded Daniel Farke, didn't it? Where as soon as those playoffs looked mathematically not possible, out he went. And that is personally what I would do. I would let Smith go into January, have the window, and this season there's another year of parachute payments, and Norwich have done well in terms of stability in recent years, and I think that's worked for them. Again, I'm not emotionally invested, but then again, emotionally invested people don't always make good decisions, do they? What would you do then? Get your takes in via the comments. Would you stick with Smith? If you do, what will it take for him to improve what's considered a little bit of a ropey situation at the moment? And really importantly, if you think he should go, who would you be getting in to replace him. As always, no need for exaggeration, no need for anger. Hopefully I'm smart enough to understand your comments without those little extra bits of outrage sauce there. And of course, Dean Smith is a human being, and his skills as a football manager don't require you to comment on him as a person. So let's try and stay within the bounds of good taste here. History tells us that Norwich did act quickly to pull the trigger last time they were in a similar-ish situation when Daniel Farke was sacked last season. Click up here to see what I made of that at the time.